weeks or so, we're going to be traveling out of Taj Hotel in Thimphu, visiting some of these communities on the edge, as we say. I was thinking about the topic, living on the edge, and we had a hurried meeting. What can we say about living on the edge? And I was trying to join the dots, because this morning we heard a session on pilgrimages. Where are the pilgrimage sites in Bhutan? What do you do when you go on pilgrimage? And then before lunch, there was a session called Sound of Silence, where a traveler, Gavin, actually talked about how he actually went to very, very remote countries in search of these communities that live out of the map, right? So here in Bhutan, I think Pavan Bama also mentioned something about the Indian middle class, sort of reading the same books, watching the same TV, etc., and have an idea of a community. I think in Bhutan, although we have media, our media tend to be very much focused on stories coming from Thimphu, on our political elites, right? And very rarely do they have an opportunity to go out to some of these places that my three friends here have been to. So we're going to spend a little time asking them to share with us their stories, right? We'd like to begin by asking Francoise Pommaret, who is a long-time resident in Bhutan, an academic and an anthropologist who actually has been studying many, many interesting communities. One of them in 2012 was in Lower King, in a very remote part of Bhutan. And she had the honor and privilege of going there before the road reached there. So Francoise, would you tell us a little bit about the people you met?
Yes, thank you, Paco. Yes, the people of Nala Trong, which is in Lower King, are really on the edge. They are on the edge in different ways. They are on the edge because they are so far geographically from anywhere. Before the road, in 2012, with my team from ILCS, we took 4 days walk from Shengang to go down, and you go down south, almost on the edge of the Manas Park. So we are where the mountain of Bhutan stops and where the plain starts. So we are on the edge geographically. They are also on the edge economically. Because of their remoteness, they have been essentially living off the land, and oranges have been recently an interesting income for them, but they still had to carry them on horses till the border. So it's economically a little bit challenged, and their main staple diet is maize. Of course, now everybody goes for rice, but traditionally it was millet and maize. And culturally, they are very interesting. I have studied their myth, and they come probably from 2 different sections of the Bhutanese society. One would be a migration from Bhutan, because they speak Khenpa at a very, very long time ago, and another part would come from southeast Bhutan, the region of Pemagotsen. So they are extremely interesting, welcoming, but they are really out on the edge. When we went, there was no electricity, there was no road. The phone was there, but you had to find a place to charge it, which is also challenging. And so that's really some people who are different from the way of life here.
Thank you, and I'm glad you're able to share this, because we have some young students at the back, probably, right, the students from Thimphu Primary School. I think a lot of us grow up in Thimphu, and we think that all of Bhutan is Thimphu. And for our visitors who fly in from Paro in a jet plane and drive on a nice highway, we think life in Bhutan is like this. But I always say real Bhutan begins when we head out of the capital towards many of these communities. So the next person we'd like to hear from is actually Passu, who's a teacher and a blogger. And as you heard, he has a very popular blog site. And Passu has also been encouraging his young students to share their stories, because it's so important for young people to be able to talk about what they like, what they care about. So Passu, talk a bit about how blogging and technology today actually permits people who are not necessarily in the urban space to be able to connect?
Thank you, ma'am. I've been blogging for about 8 years now, and the intensity increased 5 years ago. And I realized that blogging can be used as a very good platform to tell stories from outside of Thimphu. And of course, many of you who are connected to me through my blog or through Facebook would think that if I do have a job, because you always see me online. But let me tell you, I do not blog or be on Facebook during my day job. I sleep very less because I think sleeping is such a waste of time. So sometimes you will see my blog posts are done 5 a.m. in the morning because blogging drives me. So, of course, nobody wants to listen to a school teacher. But you see, even Mountain Echoes invited a teacher here, perhaps for the first time. That's because I chose to tell stories, and perhaps they found me out. And I would like to urge so many inspiring teachers and so many people who live on the edge, outside Thimphu, outside the focus of mainstream media. Tell your own stories. Write, blog. Because there are a lot of people, there are a lot of stories, everybody is busy. If you don't tell your story, nobody is going to find you out. So you have to sometimes, like I always say, block your own trumpet. And there are a lot of people who do a lot of amazing things, but for some reasons they choose not to write about it or tell about it. And I personally find this humble act very selfish, because Bhutan is a very young country in terms of a lot of things, and we need a lot of examples. And every story you tell, every ordinary story you tell can inspire a lot of people. And I'm thinking if a lot of people could join me and help each other in telling your story. If you don't have a story of your own, then perhaps you tell stories of people around you. Thank you.
Thank you, Passu. And when we were chatting, we actually realized that all the teachers in Bhutan, the minute they graduate, their first posting is to the edge. They have to spend 3 years in a rural posting. So they have a very good insight into what it means to be living on the edge. And many of the stories are already told. Because again, it's like, well, it's part of my life. Is it important enough to share, right? So we move on. Don't worry, we're going to have 3 of them speak, and then they'll comment, and then we'll have time for Q&A. Our third speaker is Marie, who worked in Bhutan many years ago, and in the course of her life, stay here, she also encountered a very different community, the community of nuns, and she actually wrote about them. So, Marie?
Yeah. And living on the edge, I would say, is because of the religious society. So it was very interesting for me as a Danish European citizen, because I think we had, at least in Denmark, we lost a lot of these religious societies. So when I came to town and met the nuns, it was really mind-blowing to me. And I feel my statement must be that we need more nuns and monks, or at least the ideas which they built their small societies upon. So maybe I would say that I found out that, we're all living on the edge somehow, but maybe this was a mental experience of living on the edge to me. It was mind-blowing in the sense that the whole religious memories and communities just had a total different focus than the lives we normally live. And so usually I had 1.5 hours, right, to tell about my experiences. So I think I had such a great experience with these different nunneries here in Bhutan, and I thought I wanted to do a book about it. And also did research on these nunneries, so it ended up as a photo book with text inside and small portraits of the nuns who were just wonderful, kind women who dedicated their lives to search for enlightenment, you might say. Yeah. Then there was some photos also from another book I did about, it's called My Way of Life, stories from children in Bhutan, and it's mostly rural stories as well, but it actually covers all the districts in Bhutan. And that was to give a voice to all these different children, and it was, some of the poems in there are just so amazing, and some of the photography as well, because I think many of them might not have done that many photos before. So I had to choose among 5,000 pictures, and around 300 stories, I think, to do the editing of that book. But it shows like a lot of the qualities I feel there are in Bhutan, a lot of the values, which has been amazing for me to experience, because I love my own country, but here I have just seen a lot of different ways to live. Is that enough?
I thought maybe then if there's anything you'd like to comment on each other's visits to these places or encounters with the community. Any questions for one another or comments? If not, Francoise?
Yes. In fact, it's a comment on Passu also. He says teachers are not usually invited and are not interested. In fact, when I went to Nalatong, to this community, I was totally in awe and impressed by the teachers there. And I would like to pay homage to all the teachers who are in very remote, difficult conditions. And thank you for clapping for them. They are absolutely living in terrible, terrible conditions, which they accept absolutely normally and their main resolve is to bring up the children and give them good education. And I've seen teachers in this remote area, and I know Passu has been teaching in a remote area before, that they will do their class, then they will do half an hour of mindfulness, sitting with the children, and then only they will go home, knowing that their home is on foot 1.5 hours in the forest, walking in the forest. Food, rice, dal, dal, rice, rice, dal, and so on, 365 days. Book, very difficult, and so many problems, and still they are totally committed. So I would like to say that from my heart.
Passu, a quick question. When I looked at this blog just the day before, Passu is actually took his students out from Wangdi, which is a 2-hour drive from Thimphu. He took his students to a village, and they actually wanted to collect village artifacts or village whatever they have to offer, to set up a little museum, interestingly, for his school. Now, I'm just wondering, are our students today so far removed from rural life that you have to create a museum in a school in Wangdi to understand village life? What prompted you to do this, and how did the children react?
Thank you. It started with a feedback from a suggestion from a teacher friend. In the first meeting, he was indicating that we need some, because a lot of Buddhist artifacts, the name of Buddhist artifact come in our textbooks, and they are just in the form of picture. Why don't we collect some teaching aid sort of artifact from the villages? Then over time, I said, let me start a club and in fact work on a bigger project than that and create a museum. And in that, not only students, my first collection was about 18 artifacts, and I put it on my blog for people to try and name those things and write their purposes. And nobody could answer 100% on perhaps how many videos, I don't know, but that's the fact. And this second visit, when I took all my students to a village just above my school, known as Matalungchu, I found out that all these artifacts we were after were not in their homes. It was like discarded in their basement or somewhere outside, almost falling apart, which means these things have no more purpose in this real everyday life now, because everything is replaced by modern items, even in the rural villages. So I'm thinking, in few years down the line, everything will be a history, and even if you take your children to the village to see them, you will not find them. So at this right time, I'm collecting some things around my school and keep it in a museum and save it for people to see.
Thank you. Actually, that's so interesting because we always ask ourselves in Bhutan, do we really need museums? Because we just have to drive out 20 minutes or walk out there and we can see it all. So we always assume that museums are meant for visitors without realizing that at some point, maybe the urban-rural divide is growing so quickly that we might lose touch with our own rural roots far more quickly than we think. But we come back to this idea of remote communities. I know that in Bhutan today, one of the biggest requests for every newly elected politician is a request for a road. We want a road, a feeder road, And some of the MPs, in fact, one of the directors on my board was saying, when he used to visit communities, he said he found that though, the further they were away from the road, the more relaxed they were, less stressed, they had more time, they could, and they were always asking him to bring them a road. I'm just wondering what your reaction is like, maybe Marie and then Francoise, on, when you get out there to areas, right? Most of these people that you've met, including the students, are way out there. Your comments.
Okay, thank you, Mary. It's different. You have to look at it from two angles. Yes, in the village they are more relaxed. They drink much more too. And I don't pretend that life in the village is all rosy at all. In fact, that's why if you go out with another eye, you will think, oh, it's so wonderful, they are so relaxed and living in peace and living in harmony with nature. Okay. But if you look at the reality, the children have to walk 1.5 hours through jungle one way to go to school. They are a danger of wild animals. The women die in childbirth because there is no road to take them to the hospital. They cannot export their own produce because there is no road. In summer, the monsoon in this area in the south, the water, the rivers are so high that you are literally locked on your mountain and you can't go. So if you are sick, you die or you survive, but there is no. So I can really understand why they need a road. And I would be careful of not romanticizing, I don't know if I pronounce it correctly, the idea of village life. It's tough, and that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. Marie, by the way, has just come back from a 12-hour journey from central Bhutan to Timbuktu yesterday.
Yeah.
So she knows about the road.
And we went to a nunnery also, just for a short visit, and they got a new road too. Yeah. So I agree with you. Yeah. And I think it's difficult to expand that further. Yeah.
Any other comments or anything before we have a few minutes? So if there are any questions or comments or people who want to contribute, some stories?
Yes.
My
Thank you. You know, when she spoke about the difficulties in the King area, it reminded me of my own life as a student. And to give encouragement to our young youth here from the schools, I would like to say that I ran away from home to go to school. It's 1966. You talked about difficulties. The school was too far from the house to go to the school. So things were very difficult those days. Things are bettered off now. You know, the question that I wanted to ask, since both of you here have gone to deeper parts of our country, what should be the first priority when you go for development of the country? So this is my question. Thank you.
Very good.
Well, soon you are going to make me feel like a politician. So I'm not sure I know how to answer your question. But what I would do before starting development is to have a study of what the people want first and what are their resources. Because it's no need to start a dairy if you have no milk or not enough cow. It's going to fail. So I think it has to go with the people's will and not what, it has to start at the grassroots and from this the remote community. Sometime in the town, people say, oh, they are uneducated, they are from remote area. They are very educated, shrewd, not the same time. But I'm very educated, but you leave me in the forest, I'll die in 2 hours. But these people, they survive for 2 weeks eating because they know which is a poisonous plant, which is not a poisonous plant. They know how to make the water, to boil the water, and they know all these things. Maybe I'm called so-called educated, but compared to them, I'm not educated. And so I think we should really take into consideration what the people want at the grassroots level. Sorry if I didn't understand exactly, but that's what I think.
I wish to make a distinction here, as the needs of the village, roads, networking, everything is necessary for their survival. But you know, nunnery, the objective of a nunnery is different. They make a choice of seclusion. You know, all saints and monks, even from the ages, through the ages, they have sought their abode, mountaintops, peaks, away from the material world and all the taint and corruption or whatever comes with it. So if you are having more and more roads to these nunneries, is that objective lost of choice of seclusion away from the world and its stress?
They still have their retreat huts, right? So they can still seclude themselves. So I think in many ways it's beneficial for the society to bring in the roads. In many ways, yeah, for the development of welfare, transportation, a fast road to the healthcare station, I mean in many ways. And of course, yeah, the religious institution has another aim, but it's still nice to go to a doctor if you're sick. It's still nice to get some food easily transported up, stuff like that. And I think, but yeah, I think you also say it indirectly here that there are many qualities in being secluded from the rest. You can kind of do other things. So there are some values were also lost when we modernize things. And that's, for me, has been the eye-opener coming here, I think, because I feel like we lost some values on our fast road to modernization in my country. And so here I have like a mirror, I can reflect what I'm seeing. Another country doing things another way, it's kind of a mirror for me, right? To see, look at my own country. And yeah, I think definitely there was some values lost on the way, which has to do with people all want to move into the cities, have all the luxuries of that, but then on the way something was lost. So that's why I think it's nice that there are still places where you can go and retreats. And I think we are all realizing that in the modern society too, that we need that.
I think you put up your hand.
No. Mine is just a comment to Venø Thesbjerg. I think he's doing a great job. Sorry, I apologize. I think our societies are evolving and changing very fast. Lifestyles are changing. I think the collection of artifacts. Yes, at one point of time we thought every village is a museum by itself. But then the lifestyle is changing with the change of technology. So the idea of collecting these artifacts and then naming them and then educating our children makes so much of sense, because it's not just knowing what prevailed in the villages, but also to get back to our traditional technology. For example, if you see a plow, made of wooden sort of thing, which is now substituted by mechanized tractors. Children do not, many children do not know. I'm recently told that a child, 5-year child, was taken to a village by our grandparents, and when the child saw somebody in the village milking the cow, the child refused to drink the milk. So see, here is a very interesting thing, because the child never knew that the milk comes from a cow. So I think we have to connect, because Bhutan as a country which places so much of affinity to our tradition and culture, which is identity, and this is Bhutan's strength, I suppose, more than anything else. Even if Bhutan grows into a very economic power, I don't think Bhutan will ever be known by that identity. But the way Bhutanese do, the way Bhutanese speak, the way Bhutanese think, I think that is our identity. And then we must not lose sight of what's happening at the moment and what had happened in the past. That knowledge is very important. I think, Professor, I really admire your work, and you must keep on doing this one. And then I think we should learn from what you are doing, so that our children do not miss. Even this is going to be missed out of history soon, if we are not able to take care of these things. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
In fact, I would like to comment on what Lieutenant just said, and it refers to Passang, about the ustensil, which are now all discarded. And in the village, it's very difficult to get clay pots to cook. Nobody do. And I cook here my Bhutanese dishes in clay pots, which I bought at Tarayana Fair. And the food tastes so much better than in aluminium pot. I cannot tell you, it's such a difference. But at the same time, because I'm supposed again to be living in town and be modern and be educated, everybody laughs at me, why you are cooking in this old clay pot, Because it is better, but at the same time, it reminds you of the tradition, and I think it is also up to us in the town to be proud of things that were discarded, but also we should bring it back somehow. Of course, I will confess, after the food session, cleaning the clay pot is really difficult.
Okay, on this idea of connection that Lily brought up, youngsters, youth today being a little disconnected from their rural roots or rural families. Passu was just telling us about a friend of his who was trying to start up a kind of a friendship camp between rural and urban children. And I know that we also have initiatives here in Thimphu. The primary school here in Thimphu actually once a year goes way out east, I think, to visit a remote east school, and they come here. So could you tell us a bit about what this initiative does to connect children from urban and rural areas?
It's a story about a young teacher, a very inspiring teacher. Of course, he also chose to tell his story. That's why everybody knows him. he and his wife, late wife, started this camp, not camp actually, initiative where his children, they're in Taganaga, a remote school in Tagana. From there, they will write letters to a school in Thimphu. I don't know if it is Thimphu Primary School. They write to children in Thimphu Primary School, and from here, Thimphu Primary School students will write back, and they establish friendship. And this winter will be their first camp, or I'm not quite sure. This urban kids will go to Tagana and camp there. And Tenzin Dorji is a very inspiring storyteller, and because of his storytelling, he has gained a lot of support from people across the country and from abroad also. And even he hired me as a photographer, and I'm also joining the camp. And I'm hoping that with this success of this camp, there will be many like this, where urban kids are given the chance to visit a rural area and live there for some time. Of course, rural students coming to town will be obvious after a few years. Everybody comes out, so it should be this way, from urban to remote areas.
Okay, maybe I can turn to Marie. I mean, you compiled this book, My Way of Life, where she had 5,000 photos taken by children of Bhutan, and you read all their stories. Can you give us an impression of the type of stories that come from rural youth and children? What do they talk about? What are their aspirations? What is life like? Yeah.
Actually, they were giving some tasks so that, there was a sense of feeling for the community that was very clear, that they wanted to educate themselves, train themselves, and then come back and do something good for the community. Which, I mean, I think is quite Bhutanese in a way compared to Denmark, where you don't expect to find this. And then they had a really nice feeling of the family and friends was of high importance to them. And there was a lot of praising of the country and the king and more things like that, which I'm sure they learned in school. And then there was a lot of, when I asked them to write about what you want to do with your future, it was more like almost everyone had a sense of feeling for others and the community, which was very touching compared to a more selfish kind of culture, which I would say. I always do compare this, but mainly that's because of my background, right? So, yeah, but so there's some really touching poems and stories there. Yeah. So please check it out. And yeah, and I think that's the main thing. There's a strong sense of community in these stories I read.
Maybe one last one here. We have only 3 minutes. Yes.
Yeah, thank you for a very interesting panel. The edge depends on, I think, your viewpoint. Where are you looking from? And I'm just wondering, for people who are looking from the village into Thimphu, aren't the people here living on the edge?
Yes.
That's very, very true. But maybe that's how we describe our press in some ways, because we are all stuck in Thimphu for an extent, not having enough reporters. So, for us, this is the center of our world, but we also forget that the world in Bhutan consists of 20 districts, 205 blocks, and we actually have communities that are losing their languages, and this is why, institutions like the Philippines are trying to map certain cultures and map their languages before it disappears. So maybe one final last words from our 3 speakers quickly before we wrap. Awesome.
The person who asked the question right now is Boss. I think now he's leaving Bhutan, but for the last many years, he runs a blog called Thimphu Tech, and it was in fact more than a telecom website. He would answer everybody's question, and everybody would visit his blog to get all the answers about mobile phone, telecom network, 3G network. So we will miss you a lot. Thanks for being here. Thanks for telling your stories.
Yes. Yes, I can only second Passu in my admiration for Galit and Boaz, who are leaving us, unfortunately. But to go back to your question, which is the edge. In fact, I like this title because when I was in Nalaton, after walking and suffering a lot, I think it's the lowest altitude, but the hardest trek I've ever done in my life. And because it's like this. And you are on the top of the mountain, and you are really on the edge. You are looking at India down there, Banas, and then India. So I really felt on the edge, and not in Tipu, I don't feel on the edge.
Okay, so what I learned from the nuns were that we kind of all are living on the edge because we know we have to die. So,
okay, so also it's a very good story that I share. I think for many years, no one visited Yoroka, which is another place way out. And in 2000, a few years ago anyway, we were interviewing the guide. And we asked him what was the most striking moment for him. And he said when Her Majesty visited them and their village was mentioned in the local radio, he said it was so excited. They talked about it for months, and he said we felt for once that we were part of Bhutan. So this is about the edge and the periphery, but whatever it is, I think it's stories that connect us all and keep us in touch with a certain reality. So thank you very much to our speakers, and thank you to all of